The year was 1987. Do you remember where you were in 1987?
Yeah.
Seems like yesterday. The year was 1987, and perhaps George Michael said it best. You know where I'm going. Oh, you gotta have faith. Yeah, you gotta have faith. You gotta have faith, faith, faith. Oh, you gotta have faith. Brothers and sisters, that's the message of today's scriptures. That even though sometimes we can be passing through some dark times, and in today's first reading, the prophet Habakkuk was passing through some dark times. Did you hear today's first reading? There are all these frightening words in there about misery and ruin and strife and grief and discord. Habakkuk was passing through some dark times, but Habakkuk had faith. Habakkuk had faith that somehow in the midst of all of this darkness, God could somehow work in all of this. And God did. Because we know that for our ancient ancestors who were deported to a foreign land, they were exiled to a foreign land, God worked in all of that and eventually brought them home, brought them joy again. You gotta have faith. In today's gospel, Jesus tells us how much faith we gotta have. How much faith you gotta have? Just the faith the size of what? A mustard seed. Imagine for a moment that you're holding a mustard seed in your hand. How big is that mustard seed? Did you know mustard seeds are small, they're tiny. It's like a sesame seed on a bun. In fact, if I were to hold up a mustard seed, you couldn't even see it. It's so small. That's how much faith we have. Because if we have only the smallest amount of faith even, God can work with that. Even in the darkest of moments, God can work with that seed of faith. Amen? That's today's message, and that's what gives us hope. You gotta love that image that Jesus uses in today's gospel where he says, if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, imagine being a teeny tiny itty bitty seed, you could say to the mulberry tree, say to that big old tree over there, move it, throw yourself into the ocean. And what would happen? You, that tiny little mustard seed, will have ordered that mulberry bush, that tree, into the ocean. You gotta have faith. Motivational speakers today say things like your attitude determines your altitude. Have you heard that before? That's almost the case here, right? Your attitude of faith determines your altitude. And God can take that small seed of faith and create something big. Which is why I love today's second reading from the second letter to Timothy. Because it has that image in there of stirring into flame the gift that God has given us. Have you ever started a fire before? In an age before lighters, in an age before matches, our ancient ancestors, how did they start fires? They struck two things together, just looking and hoping for a spark. We often refer to it today as flint and steel. You strike those two together and you try to get a spark. How big is that spark? It's tiny. It's like that mustard seed. And in fact, if you're trying to start a fire, I'm an old Boy Scout. I'm an Eagle Scout. I've started a lot of fires in my life. And when you try to start a fire with flint and steel, you have to start with something that's small and it's going to catch fire easily. Did you know what we usually use for cases like that? We use steel wool. I don't know what it is about steel wool, but it catches fire pretty quickly. So you put that teeny tiny itty bitty spark into steel wool, and you blow on it, and what starts to happen? It starts to grow. And it starts to grow. And you put some kindling, some small pieces of wood on it, and what happens? You're stirring into flame a fire. And eventually you can start to put branches and small logs, and eventually even big logs onto that fire. But could I have started with a big log? No. What do you have to start with? Something small. A teeny, tiny, itty bitty spark, or an itty bitty, teeny tiny mustard seed of faith. Follow me? And if we have that, then God can work wonders in our lives too. Brothers and sisters, maybe it's time this week, maybe the homework that we hear in today's scriptures challenges us, nourished by this word, nourished by this Eucharist, to go out those doors and to think about the small things that we can do this week. We don't have to do huge, great things this week, follow me? But what if when we come back to Mass next Sunday, what if we were able to say to ourselves, I feel good because this week I did just a little bit, a teeny tiny, itty bitty bit more than I did the week before. I loved someone that I really can't love that much. It's really difficult to love this person, but I loved them a little more. I made that effort this week. To forgive a certain person just a little more this week. To ask for a little more forgiveness and patience from others. To have a little conversation. To find some little way to show other people that I really do care, that I really do love them. Through words, or as St. Francis of Assisi, whom we celebrate this weekend, what was he famous for saying? Preach the gospel. Use words if you must. Meaning you don't need to use words. You can show a person love in so many other ways. Through the attention you give them. Through the way that you touch their hand. From the way that you listen to them. Amen? We're not talking about huge things here. We're talking about small sparks, small mustard seeds of things that we can do to create a big difference this week. The smallest of actions, when fanned into flame, become big things. Have you ever had something small just ruin your day? You wake up on the wrong side of the bed and one word just sets you off. Imagine reframing that for a moment. And instead of us causing others, then it sort of becomes a chain reaction, right? Where suddenly now we snap at someone else and then they snap at someone else. Wait a minute, what if we were to unwind all of that and instead to do those small acts that set into motion big, positive chain reactions of love and peace and unity and forgiveness in this world? I'm not asking you to do anything big or great this week. Let's just go out, nourished by this word and nourished by this sacrament, to do the small things that make a big difference in the lives of those around us. Oh, you gotta have faith. Oh, you gotta have faith.